Scott Davidson is the president and founder of Stop 23 Auto Sales, an independent dealer in rural Listowel, Ontario that specializes in almost new inventory. His store and team are very well known in the area and sell mostly trucks, SUVs, and also some very specialty cars. They constantly win awards like the Top Rated Dealer Award from Car Gurus, and Scott is actually our very first dealership client many years ago and my very first business mentor. So this conversation coming full circle a decade later means a lot. Thanks for listening in and hope you enjoyed the episode. 42 years in business, Scott, by the way. Congratulations. That's a huge milestone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. Right now we're at 42 years. We're 3 generations deep now. It's been a good run.
Absolutely, it has. It's cool to always see updates like on social and whatnot when I'm in the store and the multi-generations, right, working together. It's really something special. Before you got into the car business, I want to take it way back. Who was Scott Davidson as a kid? Were you always into business? Did you have the lemonade stands? Were you trying to sell other people's cars? Like, what was it for you?
I come from a long line of entrepreneurial family, and yes, I was not quite the lemonade stand, but when I was 12 years old, I was hustling at a flea market in Toronto, and always wanted to be my own boss. I found the car business, and before that, it was restaurants, arcades when they were hot.
Wow.
And then I found the car business in 1981.
So 1981, you get into the car business. Was it just you? Was it a family thing? What did that look like?
My brother Mark and I decided to utilize a gas station corner that my father owned in a small town in Palmerston, Ontario. And we thought we'd put a few cars out. And we did see a vacuum in our town, a weakness. Our local Chrysler dealer had closed up. They had a fire, and there was no dealer in town, so we figured we could fill that void.
Right. I never knew there was a Chrysler dealership there in Palmerston.
There was, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And I want, before we get too deep here, I want to start off with a story because I think it's really important and it's timely with your 42 years. I know you and I have talked about this last time I was in your store, but when I was looking for one of my first vehicles, I came into your dealership and we had never met. I didn't know who you were at the time. I was 17. And your brother, Mark, I was looking at a Jeep Wrangler. He kind of cornered me and he goes, "Hey, what are you looking to do here?" And he asked what I did for work. And I said, "Well, I'm trying to start this video company." And he's like, "Oh my goodness, Scott needs video for this place." So I came into your office and you sat me down and you didn't sell me a car. I think that's the only time you haven't sold people vehicles. Instead, I sold you some videos. And from that moment, I realized how impactful relationships are in business and mentors. And I just want to thank you and your team for getting us to where we are today through your...
You guys have done a fantastic job. You're still evolving. You're staying out ahead of the curve with regards to social media and digital marketing. So you guys should be very proud of your accomplishments.
I appreciate that. So in the 80s, you get into the car business. And did you ever have a thought of, hey, I want to own franchise dealers, or you were looking to sell slightly used vehicles? What was the model back then in the 80s?
The model back then was, we were in the grips of a deep recession. Interest rates were 20%. So the model at that time was just to provide affordable transportation until the economy turned around. And our budget at the time would only allow us to buy older vehicles, repair them, fix them up, and get them sold.
Right. I think it's interesting, the whole automotive space, how resilient it is. Like when I really started a while ago looking through the layers and what dealerships have been through, I mean, 20% interest rates, like you've been through this before and arguably worse. So that's awesome.
I would say that our 20% back then is the equivalent of today's 7%. It has the same economic impact. It's just generational right now. Anything higher than that at this present time would start having a very crippling effect on business. So, we have to be careful. Our generation will just say, well, I mean, we started when it was, 20% interest, but it's different today. There's a lot of excesses in the economy that have to be burnt off. Let's say we've had excessive low interest rates for years, so now it's going to take time to readjust and get back to a new normal.
A couple questions off of that. What do you attribute your resilience in life and business to? Is it those hard times? Is there anything that like kind of comes to you?
Always be learning. There's been a lot of people that have along my journey that have taught me, and always be open to learning new ideas and and learning from the best. I mean, try to get to know that guy that's done it right and learn from the best.
Do you have any names that have come to your mind throughout your journey?
Oh gosh, I would say my travels have taken me. It was my travels really. I was on the road every day, and we called on big dealerships to buy their surplus used vehicles. And back then, it was a very inefficient distribution network. There weren't big auctions. It was basically face-to-face, buying and selling on the road, and it evolved into a retail business in the early 90s. So what I've noticed is I look around and I notice that most of the big dealerships and the dealer groups had one thing in common. They all started in used, and they were good at it. So they cut their teeth in the used car business. They bought a franchise. Some of them owned multiple franchises. They were true car guys that built their businesses as you see today.
The acquisition in dealerships and dealer groups, it fascinates me because, right now, after the pandemic, dealerships were valued so high because their profits and everything were soaring through. And now that they're kind of dropping, but they're still on average, I think, higher than normal. It's very interesting to see groups acquire stores and other groups, and also what franchises they're purchasing as well. Whether they're doing great or not, it seems like they just want more rooftops.
Well, you spoke of resilience, and there are people that have the big money people, I call them. They're not stupid people. They understand that a car dealership is a positive cash flow, it's a good real estate play, it's safe investment. Not too many dealerships fail. So, your hedge fund and then your big private equity guys are now buying out the groups. So it seems to be smaller fishes are being gobbled up by bigger fishes. It also works well in a low interest rate environment. Right now, they're applying the brakes a little more, and valuations are coming down again. But no, as a whole, an auto dealership is a very stable investment for the big money guys, and it plays to all sides of their cash flow, their balance sheet. It works good as an investment for them.
It's interesting that you say that dealerships are a safe investment. And I think when most people outside the auto space would hear that, they'd be like, what? Is that because you guys have 50% profit margins on every vehicle sitting there? Which is laughable because your profit margins are not even close to that.
Well,
but
you're considered a superstar in our industry at 3% gross margins.
Right.
3%. Yeah.
Which is every day matters. Your ads are turned off for one day. That impacts you. Like it's literally day in and day out. What about it for you is a safe investment? Like if you looked at a dealership today, what are you looking at?
If I was looking to buy a new car dealership, I would look for the brand that's obviously has proven over time that it has a good product, good reputation. I would also look for, I would, in my experience, is pay more money for a well-run store than try to revive a rundown store. Because the biggest part of a good dealership is the brain trust within it. And if you can get a store that's properly imaged and has a good management team already there in the transition, and they're highly profitable, pay the money and buy a good store. There's lots of smaller stores that are run down and haven't imaged, and you don't want those stores. Those take years to turn around. So that would be my impression on that.
So being an independent and not having a culture and brand built by an OEM, how do you and the team at Stop 23 enforce or build culture?
That's a good question because we don't have the benefit of national ad campaigns and all the support that the new car franchisees have. It also takes a lot of time because it's the trust factor. The customers have to trust. You have to hire good people, you got to pay them well, and you have to keep a culture that is consistent with transparency and trust. And over time, you can build that reputation. There's a lot of other reasons why I chose to stay an independent. You get to choose your own destiny, and you get to sell the top cars of all brands. The ones that are hot and the ones that are not. You don't have to carry them in your inventory. You're not compelled by a manufacturer to do so. You also, as an independent, have to keep your premises, your buildings, your infrastructure as good as theirs. And because you are competing for every dollar out there. So there's a lot going on to stay an independent and to stay It can be challenging, but you have to reinvest in your bricks and mortar, your people, your equipment, just like a new car dealer.
Right. I remember many conversations about this and the benefits of being an independent, and you get to blaze your own trail. And I think like that describes you to a T. You want to do things your way, and that's something that's so admirable. And not be, pushed around by an OEM. The interesting thing about this is in today's market, manufacturers like Stellantis, they're used car dealerships. Mitsubishi is another one. Like they're really needing to focus on that used acquisition, obviously, but also getting trade-ins and buying out of the service bays. But this is your whole model. So you've got the systems in place for this.
Yep. And, when you take a look at the current state of the EV market, for example, and billions of dollars invested in the R&D of EVs, governments are demanding the manufacturers produce these vehicles by certain time frames, 2030, 2035, depending on the country. But I was the one kind of, again, maybe I have a lucky crystal ball. I put my crystal ball beside my horseshoes on my shelf over there. Sometimes I get, but I said years ago, about 2 years ago, and I said that the state of the EVs will evolve to probably no more than 18% of market share. And today they're below that right now. Now, mass adoption is a process. For example, not everybody had a home computer when they came out. It took 10 years for everybody to finally get a home computer. And look where we are today. So mass adoption on EVs is reliant on other things. The battery technology has to change, has to improve. The charging facilities have to be more available around the country. These are big things. I think billions and billions of dollars. So again, we're finding the sale of used EVs works well when it is half the price of a new one. It's so compellingly affordable that you almost have to buy it. And that's where we are right now. We are finding we can buy used EVs for pretty much half of their list price. And they're about, let's say, 18 months old with low mileage. Those are compelling offers for the consumer to take a look at it. As supply and demand changes, right now I think we're at the bottom of that. I think EVs will eventually become the standard, the norm. But it's going to take some time.
Right. Have you guys moved a lot of EVs or no? I know you're not really in the market, but
like I said, every month that we have the capability of buying them at a very reasonable price. And we're noticing that month over month, we're selling more.
Have you seen hybrid adoption in your dealership, like your sales skyrocket at a faster rate now because of this?
Yeah, hybrids they're gold right now. So that, that's the difference between full EV. I think that, I don't know where this is going to pan out over the next 10 years, but right now the hybrids is the way to go.
Yeah, they seem to be really popular, and Toyota obviously is investing pretty much all their money into hybrids and other brands too. So it seems like the way to go, and it's going to be interesting to see it play out over the next decade, like you said.
Yes.
If you had to start Stop 23 all over again today, and maybe this is for listeners, maybe this is for you, a hypothetical, but maybe this is for listeners looking to get into the car business, how would you do it? There's a lot of different models out there. You got Carvana, you've got just brokers, you've got used car lots, you've got really beautiful stores like yourself. Like, what is there a model that sticks out to you? Or
well, first of all, you'd have to have a robust digital advertising right out of the gate. So that would be very important. Years ago, selling cars was more of a regional thing years ago, before the internet. You had your local market, it was more of a regional thing. The internet, it opened it up for everybody. The customers are now well educated on what they're going to buy and when they're going to buy it and how much they're going to pay for it. That's okay. We love that. So starting out, you would really, really want to have a good social and digital marketing campaign. And you would not want to go into the auto industry right now being undercapitalized. So you want to have access to capital, and that way you're starting off on the right foot.
Right. Are these points from experience? Are there any challenges that really stick out to you while building your business that was like, wow, most people would have thrown in the towel, but you kept going? Are there anything that,
I would say that the capital markets in Canada can be a little shallow for independents. That slows them down. Embracing new technologies, and they just have to keep learning and listening and understanding until they have a complete understanding of their market. That's what I say. It's about a good advertising campaign. It's a way to speed up that trust in your community, to get that base and increase your sales.
So in terms of sales, and let's talk KPIs for a second, because I mean, as marketers, there's so many things that we can track, and there's so many, I'll say, wasteful indicators that marketing companies report on. What KPIs, not when it comes to marketing necessarily, but what KPIs are you tracking inside of your dealership on the day-to-day? What are you looking at on the P&L? What's your focus on most of the time?
Attribution of leads coming in is important. And it's difficult, and it's going to get more difficult as AI rolls out across the internet, to be able to attribute where you're spending your money, to get that customer standing in your showroom in front of somebody who wants to sell a car. So you always want to put someone who wants to buy a car in front of somebody who wants to sell a car. And that's one big thing. We're always looking at, of course, aged inventory. I've always been under the impression, and it's worked well for us, that high volume, lower pricing and high volume, good negotiators on floor will win the day over anybody trying to have, huge grosses, and they won't last. You have to have your volume. Your turn rate should never drop below 8 times a year. You should be able to turn your inventory 8 times a year. So that's a key component I look at, is the average turn rate of the inventory. We have had it as high as 10 times a year, and that's when you're really giving your stuff away. So a lot of people will hang their hat on price, but there's more to it than just that as well. About great customer service, about standing behind what you sell, building that reputation, building that trust in your community. All very, very important.
Right. And I there's a couple things I want to talk about there. Like, what are your biggest things to watch for while balancing profits and happy customers? Because you have a great reputation of quality, like very good quality vehicles, slightly pre-owned, but great prices.
Yeah, we've always, that's always been our niche, is next to new. Should be as good as buying a new car. The experience as a whole should be the same as buying a new car. The customers, they want value. Though now we are very fortunate in our area. Our area is a agricultural renaissance, so there's a lot of old money and a lot of very well-off farmers that are doing very well, thank goodness. And that's why our market is next to new.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you guys, anytime come past, other than the classics and some cool specialty vehicles, I mean, it's mostly trucks and SUVs. So
yeah, we like to have our halo vehicles, our classics. We'll introduce them into the inventory, and then the halo it really brings in a customer. I was watching a customer in the service department with his grandson the other day, and he was just in awe of one of the cars in the showroom, and he was a young boy, I would say he's about 10 years old. I ran to my office and grabbed one of our promotional golf caps, and I said, "This is for you." And he just lit right up. You could just see it because this kid loves cars. So
That's awesome. That's special. What car was it? Was the Mustang sitting in
it
there,
was
or
a
is that?
Mustang that was sitting in the showroom there, and yeah, he really liked that. He liked the one of our classic cars too as well. We had a black MR2. The
Oh,
veteran
wow. Yeah.
mileage, he was asking all kinds of questions about it. So you just got to be aware of your customers in the building, and fortunately, I have the time now, being the senior member of our management team, that I can do those things.
I want to ask you about that because you said that you're going to retire so many times, and every time I go past your dealership when I'm visiting Ontario, I see, oh, Scott's office is lit up. He's in there making deals or trading stocks or doing something, buying vehicles. Like, what keeps you in the business?
Car people never retire. We have done the transition. I am supposed to be retired, but I like to call it semi-retirement. So I like to go in and meet my customers still, and help with any way I can with the sales team and the management team, and just a wonderful place to, what else would you do? I mean, you can't golf all day. I mean, so car guys never really retire.
That's very fair. It's interesting because I'm a car guy, obviously, as well, and I look at you and other clients that we have and work with and dealerships, true car people. Has working with cars 24/7 diminished your passion for them a little bit, or have you just changed your taste for vehicles? Like, what has that impacted
I do see similarities between manufacturers where I may have to take a second look and say, oh, that's a Hyundai, or oh, that's a Toyota. But the passion's still there. I mean, when you see a really nice, clean trade-in come in, or I still get excited because I know there's another home for that car. We're going to find that home. We're going to sell that car.
Right. I remember one time I was in there and you put your glasses on. You're like, is that a 2000, some Honda? I don't know what it was. It wasn't an S2000. It was something older. I've never seen one before. Maybe it was in the 90s. And you went out and you just inspected this thing. And I don't know who it was. One of your team members are like, I don't know why he cares so much about this car. And you're like, I haven't seen this in so long. You were just mesmerized that it came into the store, and that's really special.
As a young child growing up, I used to study cars all the time. I'd collect car cards, and could never understand. I looked at the beautifully sculpted Bugattis and Ferraris, and why we didn't see more of those on our North American highways, and why couldn't our manufacturers adapt better styling and perhaps engineering to some degree. And yeah, it's really deeply embedded in car guys' fiber. Cars are an expression of a person's being, and people want unique. Doesn't matter if it's a pair of running shoes or a watch or a car, but they want it unique to them. They want functionality and they want style. So that's why I get excited about it.
This was going to be my last question, but I think it's just so fitting here. This is a direct quote from Scott, yours truly, yourself. I love my Porsche 911. It is a nearly perfect car. Other than when I get in it, it doesn't try to kill me. That's a quote that you said. Like, what is it about cars for you? And you've got an incredible taste in cars.
Yeah, there's cars that when you get in them, the muscle cars, and that you've got to pay attention. There's cars that every manufacturer makes. There's always one standout model that's just a pure driving experience. Every manufacturer does. And over time, by being an independent, you're able to drive all makes and models. You don't get that narrow vision of what a car should be. There's no bias. Every car maker has one model just sticks out, and they're really great.
What was your dream car growing up? Have you owned that car now? Has your dream car changed? Is it a Bugatti?
Oh, my dream car growing up was always the Mustangs. I have 7 of them now in my collection. The Ferrari, of course. Every young man always wanted a Ferrari. I have one of those, a used Ferrari. Yeah. There's quite a mixture of vehicles. Right now, in the collector car world, trucks are hot, and certain vehicles in the collector car world are falling in price, and it's all due to the age demographic that changes over time.
Right. That's interesting. Are there any cars that you feel like are going to be a collector's dream that are on the road now or kind of retiring off the road, not very popular, that you think are going to shoot up in price?
Yes, the Hellcats, they will be collectible probably 5 years from now. There's a lot of them. A lot of some of the BMW M series cars they're always going to be strong. Pickup trucks, some of the pickup trucks are going to be collectible as well. Like if you ever, if you looked at a new Ford Raptor lately, I mean that thing is just
crazy
awesome.
price.
Yeah, that's right. So the price, the price. Speaking of price, we're looking at new, almost with astonishment, the new car pricing. It is a very expensive. A lot of that cost is a direct result of the R&D costs for the EVs. So they have gone up. One of your questions was, is it based on price or based on payment? It's based on both. Mm-hmm. The average payment has really gone up for customers, and they're feeling it right now. Customers right now, they are not in the mood to waste their time or their money. They want what they want, and that's it. Or they'll just sit on the sidelines. They just won't buy anything. So it's kind of like the whole world is sitting in the skew waiting for central bankers to start lowering their interest rates. That's what's going on right now. We're waiting, and the big player in that would be the U.S. Federal Reserve. We're waiting for them. They haven't lowered yet, but they're going probably next month in September. And that's kind of what I'm reading into it. I don't think the politics surrounding either the United States or Canada or politics doesn't factor in that much. Doesn't factor into capital markets that much, or cars for that matter. In my world, a car is also a commodity. There's a bid and there's an ask. And the same with the stock market, or there's a bid, there's an ask price. That's the same throughout the entire economy. So that's the way I look at acquisition of cars, selling of cars, and those two things will fluctuate. Bid and ask spreads will go wider or they'll get tighter.
Right. So with the economy, are you seeing a lot of credit applications being declined more than usual right now? I know in the U.S. they've been skyrocketing. What has your experience been like?
Declines, yes, because and again, it's not so much credit quality per se. It's monthly payment has now jumped from here to here, and that's something that has to be taken into consideration when approving an application.
Right. And your buyers, are you seeing older trades now? And how does that fit in your model? Because vehicles are, statistically on the road longer now. And now these vehicles are 10 years old or 8 years old, and that doesn't fit into your nearly new. How are you adapting to that?
We have buyers that want those vehicles, but I've also noticed that during the pandemic, of course, we weren't driving our cars. And coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people were working from home. So we're not putting the miles on our cars like we used to. Therefore, that 10-year-old car might come in with low mileage, and it's a real find because you can sell it really quickly.
Right. I know we were talking about the Canadian market and bringing cars to the U.S. And a lot of our U.S. dealers were like, what do we do with these vehicles? At the auction, there's a flood of Canadian inventory, and the chassis are obviously, Canadian, and what they can do with that. What's your experience with that? What's the strategy for those dealers listening that aren't really familiar with it?
Over the years, the early years, there was a bias about a fear or a bias of buying a vehicle from Canada. Now it's not as pronounced. So the reason why Canadians are selling to the United States on some of the used vehicles is the difference in currency is one reason, but it's also because their economy is 14 times bigger than ours. They have more demand. Money flows like a river. Mm-hmm. It'll find its best use. It'll find its audience, and our American friends and our American dealers buy a lot of vehicles from Canada.
In terms of like profits and returns, what are you seeing the best return when it comes to advertising in your dollars? I know you've invested in a lot of different companies and websites over the years. marketplaces, obviously Car Gurus, Auto Trader, you've done them all. Where are you seeing the best return right now?
Of course, you have to have a really good website and a simple website. Don't complicate it. People want to, within one click, get on the inventory. That's what they come to see. They'll go back, they'll backtrack, and they'll look at, where you are and who you are, and they'll read your reviews. But when they initially come to your website, they want to look at vehicles. So keep it simple on that end. And social media. Social media is becoming more prevalent in lead generation. And thank goodness we have good people like you that can manage it for us. I think that in the past it's just been for branding. But no, if it's done properly and you're touching that social nerve, you're building on your brand, you're creating more leads. At the end of the day, it's about, leads and number of leads. And you boil it all down.
Right. And there's like reach and reputation. I mean, and not just in the car business, but every business is so important. And that's what we talk about in marketing a lot. And we've had this conversation before, but used dealers or independent dealers have such a big leverage point in my mind when it comes to advertising because of your inventory, right? There's no blue oval fans that won't buy from you because you've got Chevys on your lot, right? Because you've got Raptors on your lot. Works with every brand. And I know a lot of OEMs are starting to advertise, or franchise dealers are starting to advertise a lot more used inventory, especially, I don't want to say names, but might be Mitsubishi, might not be, but like a lot of used focused online. So it's interesting.
They, when you asked me about the list of things I've tried, I can tell you some of the best results. Now let's go back again. We had that. You're going to buy your vehicle from your couch with your phone. Okay, I never bought into that. At the end of the day, and it's more or less because of regulatory reasons, the customer at the end of the day should attend and has to attend at the dealership to pick their car up. So if you take that hybrid and you create a hybrid approach, sure, you can do the financing over the phone, you can do it over the internet with the dealer, but at the end of the day, there still has to be that connection. So I never bought into that. I was speaking at a conference and I said that, and you could hear a pin drop in the room. Now, mind you, that was 5 years ago. And today it's still the same. Your business model still has to have bricks and mortar, a robust digital footprint as well, and combine them both. But I'm not a real fan of thinking that everybody's going to buy them from the couch, never come to the dealership and you deliver it to their front door. It's not profitable.
Do you feel like
it's not profitable?
Do you feel like there's an emotional attachment to the dealership and the model that you have? I'm not disagreeing with you because I ask so many people, like, would you ever buy, even people outside the automotive space, would you ever buy a car from your couch? And they're like, no, I love the experience. I love coming into a dealership and like driving it out of the delivery bay. And some people are like, yeah, absolutely. Your brand should in your local market especially should be a feeling. Brand is a feeling. I mean, it's a feeling of trust. So when people look at that logo, when they drive by, they know who we are and what we represent. And they should have that feeling of trust. The same as any other product that you buy on a daily basis. It's consistent and it makes you feel good. Absolutely. And I want to dive into that because your logo is everywhere in Listowel and beyond. You do so much for the community, and I think that's one thing that really stands out to me in the dealership space is how community-centric dealerships are, and I think you guys really take that to the next level.
I think all good dealers, there are a lot of great dealers out there that are the same. They are active in their community. They're generous to their communities. I think it's our duty as business people that we have to give back to our community, and we are very active that way. I mean, we're supporting hospitals and minor ball, minor hockey. I can go down the list. We try to make that target every year. It's important.
Absolutely. Well, you guys are killing it at that. Really, I often see donations and community involvement, and that just goes back. I mean, Listowel in that area, North Perth, very tight-knit community, very community-centric, and I know people appreciate and talk about it all the time. So correct me if I'm wrong. Do you have history with acquisitions and like buying a franchise store?
No, but I have bought other used car stores, and that's why I go back. That's why I go back to the brain trust theory. If you dilute your brain trust by having them scattered all over Ontario with multiple rooftops, your efficiencies drop. So you could have one store making more money than four stores combined, and then eventually. So it is about the people, the management team. So we've decided to keep our one powerhouse going and our resilience in the export market to the United States as well. And we would look at a new car franchise. We have a young team of management coming up through. My son Jason's the president, and I'm sure that in the future they will probably look at a new car brand.
Are you rolling already? Like, are you freaking out? Because I know you're very independent. You love independent, but obviously the OEMs, there's a lot of benefits too.
There's a lot of benefits there too, yes. So the younger generation of my management team, they're more willing to take on the challenge. So,
right. Young, hungry, and ready to get after it.
Yes, that's right.
That makes sense. Winding down here, over COVID, we've seen used car prices skyrocket and demand, right? What are you seeing in today's market? And what do you think the market's going to look like in 12 months from now? With rates dropping, what are car prices going to do? Where do you see that going?
Well, again, the industry pundits back during the pandemic, they were all telling everybody hit the sell button, get rid of your inventory. That was again an outlier, and I instructed my buyers at the time to buy everything. Keep buying, don't stop. Keep buying. We were buying through the lockdown. Buy. It worked out well for us. Let's put it to that way. Used car prices have come down, I would say about 16% in the backdrop of a 26% increase during the pandemic. So there's a way to go, but there'll be a point where it's going to stop. They've come down quite a bit. So the new normal won't be that runaway depreciation on new cars when you first drive them over the curve. I think we've all learned something through the pandemic about overproducing cars, about inventory sizes, so more of a better inventory management type thing. So we've all learned in our industry. So I don't see certain models won't even have much depreciation if they're really a hot seller. I'm still seeing that. But yes, that we still have a ways to go. But it's definitely a new normal. It's not the old normal. Stack them high and sell them cheap, and those days are done. I think that I also look forward to the next 6 months. You were asking about what my crystal ball park behind my side of the park says. I see it as it's going to be great. We are on the other side of that bell curve now, and interest rates are coming down. So I do see that it's going to be another 3 years of being very busy as the interest rates come down and we get back to a new normal.
I love the positive outlook because there's a lot of doom and gloom. And if COVID taught us anything, I mean, the world, the pandemic, and business, get aggressive, and obviously you did, and it's working out for you. It's fantastic. Yeah. I know some OEMs got aggressive on producing vehicles, and they're kind of in a tight spot. But
yes,
hopefully that will change.
They're being held accountable more now. The stock market will crucify an OEM if they overproduce, and they'll sell their stocks into the abyss. So they're being very mindful of that now. The valuation of the company, the production of vehicles. Unfortunately, when there's a hot seller, the new car guys don't get enough of. But that's just the nature. That's the nature of the beast.
Are you seeing brand loyalty change now quite a bit with like manufacturers overproducing? And
I've seen brand loyalty wane since the bankruptcies back in 2008 and 9. That has changed immensely. People will look at different brands. They'll compare them. They'll drive them. They're not as compelled to drive the same vehicle their father and mother did when they were young. So yeah, things have changed that way, big time.
got some family in the Stellantis world, and I grew up in a Mopar family. Like, if it ain't Mopar, it is not coming in the driveway. It's not like, don't even think about coming over for dinner. But even my dad has changed his heart and dabbling in other brands and collector cars. So it's fascinating. Scott, last question for you. You've given me a lot of sound and wise advice over the years. If you had to give any advice to entrepreneurs or car business people listening, what would that be?
The entrepreneurs never stop learning and always learn from the best. Always be connected to what's going on around you in the world as well, because we are connected in business one way or the other. So have an awareness, open this up, and keep learning, and never say never. Never say never. Never let anything come between you and your vision. Whether it be right or wrong, it's still your vision, and that's what makes a great entrepreneur.
Scott Davidson, thank you for joining for the first episode of our podcast and spending some time here this morning. I'm looking forward to having more conversations with you.
Well, thanks for having me, Braden, and keep up the good work on our social media and helping us with our digital marketing as well. Take care.
I hope you found some value in this conversation, just like I did. And we're excited to continue to bring interviews and conversations with dealership legends, maybe just like yourself. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. I'm your host, Braden Gingrich from Dealer Surge.